Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm excited to talk about this topic today. This is kind of an issue that came up for me, or not necessarily an issue, but something that I was dealing with here recently. So I really wanted to dive into that. Essentially, what I'm talking about here is in the networks that I'm a part of, there's one that we've got an Empire call, which is essentially just a men's call. And so it's very valuable for just a group of guys to get on the call and discuss different things that they're going through. And this particular one that we had, it's on Wednesdays. So we had it this last Wednesday, and basically what we were doing is we were doing check-ins. So we go in to talk to different guys. They kind of share some different things that they're going through. And one thing that was brought up around this topic or conversation, one of the guys mentioned this quote, whatever you want to call it, was essentially, you have to exhaust the body to tame the mind. And I just found tremendous value in that and super relatable to everything that I was kind of going through. And sometimes on these calls, like I said, they're check-ins. It kind of depends on whoever's talking, some things that they're going through. They really dive into maybe family issues, business issues, issues with teammates, or even issues within their own mind. At the time of year, when we're maybe a little bit slower, that can be when different stories creep into our mind, or maybe it's when we're at the time of year where we're prepaying for a lot of expenses and different stories come into our mind. Or maybe it's even just we've got a meeting that came up, and from there, we had stories that ran wild in our mind. And essentially, sometimes when we get into these calls, it may not be super relevant what guys are going through at the moment, but it's kind of ironic that usually some of the things that are discussed present themselves in the near future for me or for whoever, and all of a sudden it's like, man, we just talked about that. That's super relevant to what that guy was dealing with, and now it's come up for me. And so essentially what I'm getting at here with you have to exhaust the body to tame the mind, where this came up for me was that call was on Wednesday, and then kind of went on with my day throughout the rest of the day. And, it is what it is as far as how the day went. But what happened on Thursday is we had a meeting, and it kind of just brought back some stories in my mind. A lot of the stories that I was dealing with when we were going through some of the difficult situations with our family and the finances in the bank, and really looking at our overall operation, what the future looks like. And it just kind of brought back some pretty negative stories for me. Got back from that meeting midday, and my wife, Ellen, was at home. I was just kind of telling her about some of these stories and whatnot. And I was going to get ready to go do some stuff in the office after that. And she's like, hey, you really just need to maybe go take a ride on the bike, exercise bike that we have. Go burn off some steam and some energy. And I just thought it was ironic because I never told her about what we talked about on our Empire call with a group of guys. And, I never told her the statement of you have to exhaust the body to tame the mind. Never told her that, but this all of a sudden is coming back up, and it's super relevant for me. And as soon as she said that, I thought of this quote and this saying, and I'm like, geez, how does that always come up in our lives where something is like, she didn't know that, but obviously that's the advice that she gave me. So I was like, you know what? She's right. As much as I hate to admit that, she's right. This is super relevant. I need to go work through this. And so that's what I did. I jumped on the exercise bike for about a short half hour, and I really kind of blew off some steam, listened to some music, and it was super beneficial for me to kind of just work through that stuff and to kind of put it past me. I mean, that's just one way a guy can work through the stories. And what this also reminds me of is there's a lot of times on the farm, and I'm thinking back specifically to when, we were super busy with the cows all the time. We'd have days where we'd just be working cows, working calves and be on your feet all day. There's just something about working cattle, working cows, like I said, being on your feet all day that really just drains you physically. And after the end of the day, you can sit in the chair, or maybe you lay down at night in bed and your legs are almost just tingly because you're just so exhausted. And those are the times that you usually just pass out because you're physically exhausted and your mind doesn't have the capability to really let the stories that are in your head be loud enough to control your time and your focus and your energy. And that's kind of what was mentioned on the call, is usually at the end of those days is you're super exhausted, and those stories, they don't carry the weight that they usually do. And I just found a lot of value in that, especially as I was kind of going through that, here recently. And so I just want you guys to think back, when is there ever times to where maybe you've been working, even during the day, maybe you're working those cattle, maybe you're out planting the corn or whatever it is, but you're doing things that are physical, and you might have some stories that are going through your mind throughout the day, and that's pretty typical. It's pretty normal. But at the end of the day, you're just so physically exhausted that those stories, they're not very loud. They're not loud enough to control your time, energy, and your focus. And sometimes those are some really good feelings. As exhausted as you are, that mind is tamed for the moment. And just think about that, how valuable that can be. So a lot of times, maybe you don't necessarily need to go out and work a super physical day to tame your stories in the mind. Maybe you just need to jump on the exercise bike, maybe go for a walk, maybe do some weightlifting. And I think that's a good thing to also start your day off with. For me, I've been in a good habit of trying to work out in the mornings, and it kind of starts me with a fresh mind. It really kind of helps me start the day out right. And I can tell that there's days when I don't get that workout in, that, it's a lot easier for my mind to run wild. And when I talk about the stories, I feel like sometimes the stories are always going to be there, but it's kind of how loud they are and how much time, energy, and focus they steal from you. So I just want you to kind of think about that's kind of the lesson that I learned from that call. And another thing here to mention with these calls is that's a lot of the value that I've found in being a part of these networks. These networks offer a lot of tools, but there's really a lot of value in the connection that comes from, not being alone, that other people are struggling with stories as well, and that maybe they've been there, they've done that, and they've got some advice like we had here that can help other people work through that. So there's just a ton of value in being a part of these networks, and you may not always pick out things to start, but usually on every call that I'm on, I can pick out something that I can take home and I can implement myself to really help me out in the struggles that I'm dealing with. That's the lesson there, is just find value in networks, find value in other people that are going through similar struggles, but then take that to value, or take something home from that call that you had or whatever it was, and really try to implement it in your life. And so, like I said, the one thing that I took home from that call was you have to exhaust the body to tame the mind. And I want you to maybe think about where that's really relevant in your life. Next time you're going through something where your mind is running wild, the stories are really loud, and they're controlling your time, energy, and focus, maybe you can go do something to kind of help take care of that. So I hope you found value in this, and I hope it's relatable, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share, or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram at Garrett Ruskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.